In this story, a racist customer makes a prejudiced assumption about a black woman shopping at a luxury boutique. But what she doesn't know is that the woman is the CEO of the brand. Watch as the situation unfolds, leading to a powerful moment of accountability and change in the fashion industry. Elena Foster stepped into the Lavelle Luxe Boutique, a high-end fashion store that carried her name. Dressed in a modest black coat and simple flats, she didn't scream wealth, yet she didn't need to. She had spent years building this empire from the ground up. Today, however, she wasn't here as the CEO. She was here to test her own brand. The boutique gleamed with luxury, marble floors, soft golden lighting, and handbags displayed like fine art. Elena ran her fingers along the smooth leather of a signature bag, admiring the craftsmanship. "Can I help you?" A voice interrupted, cool and professional. It was Jessica Sanders, the sales associate. Young and blonde, Jessica stood a few feet away with a neutral expression, but Elena could sense the judgment in her gaze. "I'd like to see the new collection," Elena replied, her tone calm and composed. Jessica's eyes scanned Elena from head to toe, taking in the lack of visible designer labels or ostentatious wealth. "Sure," she said flatly. "This way, please. You might find something more affordable here." The word affordable hung in the air, a suggestion wrapped in assumption. Elena felt the sting, but she didn't flinch. She pointed to the most expensive handbag in the display case. "I'd like to see that one," she said calmly. Jessica hesitated for a moment, then forced a smile. "That's a very exclusive item," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, but she didn't move to unlock the case. A silence fell between them. Elena had been here before, on the other side of the counter, when she was just starting out in the business. "I'd still like to see it," Elena said with quiet resolve. Before Jessica could respond, another voice cut in. "Is there a problem here?" It was Catherine Moore, the store manager. Catherine approached with quiet authority, her sharp eyes taking in the situation. "No problem," Jessica quickly replied. "Just assisting her." Catherine studied Elena for a moment before speaking again. "I'm sorry, but this boutique caters to a very specific clientele. If you're looking for something more suited to your needs, we have a lower-tier collection." Elena could feel the eyes of other customers on her, pretending not to watch, but she knew what was happening. She had a choice: walk away or remind them exactly who she was. Calmly, Elena reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "Catherine, please call Daniel now," she said without emotion. Jessica and Catherine exchanged uneasy glances. Elena's resolve was unwavering. A few moments later, the door opened, and Daniel Harris, the CFO of Lavelle Luxe, entered. Daniel Harris, CFO of Lavelle Luxe, walked into the boutique with an air of authority. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his glasses precise, his steps deliberate. Elena spotted him immediately and gave a nod of recognition. "Daniel," she said calmly, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "I wasn't expecting you today." Daniel's gaze swept over the room, his expression unreadable. He nodded back, acknowledging Elena. "Mrs. Foster," he said, his voice firm but respectful, "I wasn't aware of your visit." The silence in the boutique was almost deafening as all eyes turned to them. The staff looked nervously at each other, unsure of what would happen next. Elena's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the nervous tension in the air. She looked at Jessica and Catherine with quiet intensity, her eyes unflinching. "Do you know who I am?" Elena's voice was soft but cutting. The question hung in the air, forcing both Jessica and Catherine to face the consequences of their actions. Jessica swallowed hard, her face flushing with embarrassment. Catherine's eyes widened slightly as she began to piece together what was happening. I didn't mean to," Jessica stammered, but Elena cut her off before she could finish. "Yes, you did," Elena replied calmly, her gaze unwavering. "You judged me based on my appearance, didn't you? You made assumptions about me before I even said a word." Catherine, always professional, tried to take a different approach. "Mrs. Foster, we have strict policies regarding exclusivity for our clientele. It's a part of our brand's identity." Elena's eyes narrowed slightly as she processed Catherine's words. "Exclusivity?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "What exactly is exclusive about turning people away based on their appearance?" The air grew even heavier as the silence stretched on. Finally, Elena made her decision. This isn't just about me. It's about the culture we've allowed to take root in this place. She reached into her handbag and pulled out her phone, dialing a number with deliberate calm. I want Daniel to come here now. Jessica and Catherine exchanged uneasy glances, neither sure of what would happen next. But before they could react, the door swung open, and Daniel Harris, accompanied by a security guard and the company lawyer, walked in. The room seemed to freeze as Daniel scanned the boutique, his sharp eyes taking in the situation. His gaze landed on Elena, and he gave a subtle nod of recognition. Mrs. Foster, he greeted her, his tone calm but firm. I wasn't aware you were visiting today. The tension in the room was palpable. Elena gave him a small smile, a quiet acknowledgement of his presence. I wasn't expecting to be treated this way, she said, her voice calm but heavy with meaning. The room remained silent for a long moment as Elena's words sank in. Daniel's calm demeanor contrasted with the mounting tension that filled the space. He was well aware of what had just transpired. Daniel's eyes narrowed as he addressed the employees, his tone low but clear. What happened here today is unacceptable, he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority, and it won't be tolerated. Jessica and Catherine both flinched at the weight of his words. They had expected a reprimand, but the gravity of the situation was beyond what they had imagined. I think we all need to learn something from this, Daniel continued, turning to Elena. I'm sorry for the treatment you've received. It's not who we are as a company. Elena gave a small nod, her expression softening slightly. Thank you, Daniel. But this is bigger than just me, she said, her voice gaining strength. This is about changing the culture here. It's time to make sure this never happens again. There was a long silence as Daniel looked at Elena, a sense of understanding passing between them. Finally, he spoke. What do you want us to do? Elena took a deep breath before responding. I want a full review of the hiring and training process. I want to know how this happened, and I want it fixed. Immediately. Daniel nodded without hesitation, turning to Robert, the company attorney. Robert, get on it. I want a report by the end of the day. Robert immediately stood up, his expression serious. Understood, he said before turning and making his way toward the back office. Elena watched him leave, then turned her attention back to the staff, her eyes firm. I want all of you to understand something. Luxury is not just about the product, it's about the experience. And every customer, regardless of their appearance, deserves that experience. She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. Then she looked directly at Jessica and Catherine, her tone unyielding. You will be retrained, and you will learn what it means to treat every person with respect, no matter who they are. The staff stood in silence, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Elena turned to Daniel, who was watching her closely. We'll start by changing the environment here. Make it a place where everyone feels welcome. Daniel gave a sharp nod. We'll get it done, he said. I'll have a team working on it right away. Elena's lips curved into a small, satisfied smile. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for understanding the importance of this. Later that evening, the corporate office was buzzing with activity. News of the incident had spread, and everyone was on edge. There was a palpable sense of urgency in the air. Daniel walked through the office, his footsteps echoing on the polished floors. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This wasn't just about one employee. This was about the future of the company. He entered his office, shutting the door behind him. As he sat down, he pulled up the report from earlier that day. His eyes scanned the pages, noting every discrepancy, every detail. This wasn't just a matter of bad customer service. This was a deep-seated issue that had been allowed to fester. Elena was right. It was time for a change, a big one. He took a deep breath, his fingers resting on the edges of his desk. He could already hear the phone calls, the meetings, the decisions that would follow. This was the start of something new. The next morning, Daniel called for an urgent meeting with the senior leadership team. As the team gathered around the conference table, the air was thick with anticipation. We're facing a crossroad, Daniel began, his voice steady but filled with determination. What happened yesterday cannot stand. We need to overhaul our entire approach to customer service, training, and hiring. There were nods around the table, but a few executives exchanged nervous glances. Change was always difficult, but this was more than just a few policy updates. This was a fundamental shift. I know this will be challenging, Daniel continued, but it's necessary. We've built a reputation as a luxury brand, but luxury is about more than the price tag. It's about respect, inclusivity, and experience. One of the executives, Linda, spoke up. Daniel, I agree, but this won't be easy. We have clients who expect exclusivity. If we shift too much, we risk losing our core base. Daniel met her gaze, his expression unwavering. We're not compromising on exclusivity, but we are defining a new kind of luxury, one that is built on inclusion and respect. The future of this brand depends on it. The room was silent as the weight of his words settled in. There was no turning back now. Everyone knew this was a turning point. Get started immediately, Daniel said, his tone decisive. I want action, not just words. We'll rebrand, retrain, and rebuild the customer experience from the ground up. The executives nodded, and as they left the meeting, a sense of resolve filled the air. The hard work was just beginning. The following week, the changes Daniel had ordered began to take shape. Teams were reorganized and a new training program was implemented across all stores. The focus was clear: inclusivity, customer respect, and top-tier service. Meanwhile, word about the transformation spread quickly through the fashion industry. Competitors, once sure of their own dominance, were now on edge. What Elena had started was beginning to gain momentum. Elena, though, wasn't watching the competition. She was focused on her own mission. She had walked through her store and witnessed the change firsthand. Now it was time for the world to see it too. We've made great stride, she told her team in a meeting, but it's just the beginning. We need to make sure every store reflects the changes we've promised. We're not just changing a brand, we're changing the industry. The team responded enthusiastically. They knew that this wasn't just about fixing past mistakes. It was about creating a new standard for luxury fashion, one that valued people over profits. Meanwhile, customers started to notice the difference. The reviews online, once full of complaints and disappointment, began to shift. People were impressed by the new atmosphere, the inclusive service, and the genuine care shown by the staff. One morning, Elena received a call from a regular customer who had previously felt ignored by the staff. I just wanted to thank you, the customer said. I've never felt so welcomed in a luxury store before. It's clear you've really made a change. Elena smiled as she hung up the phone. This was the kind of feedback she had been waiting for. She knew the journey wasn't over yet, but the road ahead was looking brighter. As the months went by, Lavelle Luxe became a model for other brands to follow. The fashion industry began to recognize that luxury wasn't just about wealth and exclusivity. It was about making everyone feel valued, no matter their background or status. But Elena wasn't satisfied with just changing her own company. She had bigger plans. One evening, as she sat in her office, looking out over the city skyline, she thought about the future. This is just the start, she said to herself. We're going to change the entire industry, not just one brand. With that thought, she picked up the phone and called her team. It's time for the next phase, she said. We're not stopping here. We're going to lead this revolution, and we're going to do it together.